It was a quiet afternoon in a neighborhood in Georgia, the kind of place where nothing unusual is expected to happen, where people go about their day without fear. But on February 23, 2020, something unfolded that would later shock the entire world, because that day, a young man named Ahmaud Arbery was out for a run, something he often did, jogging through the streets, passing houses under construction, moving through a neighborhood that seemed calm on the surface. But within minutes, that ordinary run would turn into something no one could have imagined, because as he continued down the road, a truck appeared, then another, and what started as a normal moment quickly shifted into something tense, something uncomfortable, something that would soon be captured on video and shared across the world, raising questions that people are still asking today. Because according to reports, two men believed something suspicious was happening in the area, and instead of calling authorities and stepping back, they decided to follow, to confront, to take matters into their own hands. And as the distance between them and Ahmaud Arbery closed, the situation escalated, turning a quiet street into the center of a moment that would later be analyzed, frame by frame, second by second, as the footage revealed a sequence of events that felt both sudden and drawn out at the same time. Because while it all happened quickly, every second carried weight, every movement mattered, every decision led closer to a point that could not be undone. And as people later watched the video, they saw confusion, they saw tension, they saw a situation that could have been avoided, but wasn't. And what made it even more disturbing was not just what happened, but how it happened, in broad daylight, in a residential area, with cameras recording, capturing a moment that would soon spark outrage, debate, and a nationwide conversation. Because once the footage was released, everything changed. People who had never heard of this case suddenly saw it, shared it, reacted to it, and demanded answers. Because the video didn't just show an event, it showed a story that didn't make sense to many, a situation that raised more questions than it answered. And as investigations moved forward, details began to emerge, timelines were examined, statements were questioned, and the focus shifted to understanding not just what happened in those final moments, but what led up to them, what decisions were made, what assumptions were formed, and why the situation reached a point where it could no longer be reversed. And as the case gained attention, it also revealed how quickly information can spread, how a single video can bring global attention to something that might have otherwise remained local, and how people from different places, different backgrounds, could all look at the same footage and come to the same conclusion, that something about this was deeply wrong. And as legal proceedings began, the case moved from the streets into the courtroom, where evidence was presented, arguments were made, and the focus shifted once again, this time toward accountability. Because beyond the footage, beyond the headlines, beyond the discussions online, there was a real person at the center of this story, someone whose life ended in a moment that should never have happened. And as the trial unfolded, people watched closely, waiting to see what outcome would follow, whether justice would be served, whether the questions that had been raised would finally be addressed. And while the legal process eventually reached its conclusion, the impact of that day did not end there, because even now, the story continues to be discussed, analyzed, and remembered, not just as a case, but as a moment that forced people to stop, to look, and to question what they were seeing. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories are not the ones filled with mystery, but the ones where everything is visible, everything is recorded, and yet the questions remain, not about what happened, but about why it happened, and what could have been different if just one decision had changed.